Have you ever seen someone's life flip upside down in a single night? Imagine standing there, your heart trembling, your dignity crushed in front of a room full of strangers who laugh at you, while you wish the ground would swallow you whole, only to have the one person no one expected step forward, take your hand, and rewrite your fate forever. That's exactly what happened to Anna, a young waitress who thought she didn't belong anywhere except behind trays and dirty dishes, until one billionaire changed the story in a way no one in that glittering party could have imagined. Stay with me till the end, because you will not want to miss the moment when everything turned upside down for her. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Goodness Corner, because stories like these deserve to be shared, and your support helps us keep bringing them to life. Anna was 24, living in a tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper and dreams far bigger than her means. Every night, she worked double shifts at a small cafe in the city, just to pay for her sick mother's medicine and keep the lights on. The world had not been kind to her, but Anna wore her pain quietly. She was the type of girl who smiled at customers even when her feet were blistered, who handed back lost wallets even though she barely had coins of her own, who dreamed of studying fashion design but kept that dream folded away like a dress she could never afford to wear. Her life was simple, invisible, and in her mind, unworthy of notice. But fate often hides in the places we least expect. One evening, her cafe was unusually busy because a large catering order had been placed for a private event. The manager barked instructions, and Anna, though exhausted, carried trays loaded with hors d'oeuvres and sparkling drinks. When she asked whose party it was, she was told in a whisper, "It's Richard Kane's gala." The name carried weight. Richard Kane was a billionaire industrialist, a man whose photographs graced magazines, who people whispered about in awe. His gala was the kind of event the city's elite begged to be invited to, the kind that sparkled with diamonds, gowns, and champagne rivers. And Anna, a mere waitress, was being sent there to serve. Her heart raced at the thought. She didn't belong in a palace of chandeliers and marble floors. She belonged in the shadows, unseen. Yet she had no choice. The catering company loaded them into vans, and soon, Anna stood at the gates of a mansion so grand it made her chest ache. The party was a carnival of wealth. Gold drapes, live orchestras, fountains spilling wine into crystal bowls. Women glittered like stars in their gowns, men laughed in tailored suits. And there, right at the heart of it, was Richard Kane himself, tall, striking, magnetic, every gesture commanding attention. Anna kept her eyes down, clutching her tray, reminding herself. Invisible. She weaved through the crowd, serving glasses, ignoring the judgmental glances. But invisibility is fragile, and in a world that feeds on cruelty, it doesn't last. As she walked by a group of young socialites, one of them sneered. "Look at her shoes," a woman hissed, her voice dripping venom. Anna's shoes were old, the leather cracked, the laces frayed. Another laughed. "She looks like she wandered in from the street." The word stabbed Anna, but she stayed silent. She tried to move away, but the group followed, their mockery growing louder. Soon, others noticed, their laughter swelling. "You don't belong here," a man jeered, his breath reeking of champagne. "This is a party, not a soup kitchen." Her cheeks burned. Her fingers trembled. She wanted to disappear. And then the cruelest moment came. The hostess of the event, a woman with diamonds coiled around her neck, stepped forward and hissed, "Get out. This is no place for the likes of you. Out." Before Anna could explain she was hired to serve, 2 security guards appeared, rough and cold, and shoved her toward the grand doors. The crowd clapped, some laughing, some shaking their heads in false pity. Tears blurred Anna's vision. Humiliation swallowed her whole. The golden chandeliers blurred into smears of light as she stumbled into the cold night air. Alone on the marble steps, she sank down, clutching her tray like a shield. "Why always me?" she whispered. "Why do I never belong?" She thought of her mother at home, fragile and coughing. She thought of the dream sketches she kept hidden in her drawer. And for the first time in years, she let herself cry, not the quiet, hidden tears she shed in her pillow, but the kind that left her shaking, broken, exposed. And then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing against the marble. A shadow fell across her. She wiped her face quickly, ashamed, expecting another cruel word. Instead, a deep voice said softly, "What are you doing out here?" She looked up. It was him. Richard Kane. The billionaire himself, standing not as an untouchable figure on a magazine, but as a man, gazing down at her with something she never expected, concern. Her lips parted, but no words came. He extended his hand. "Come back inside," he said. "Not as staff. As my guest." At that moment, everything stopped. Anna stared at the hand before her, stunned into silence. Inside, the music throbbed, the laughter swirled, but out here, the world had shrunk to one impossible moment, a billionaire offering his hand to a broken waitress. She hesitated, her fingers hovering, afraid it was a cruel trick, afraid the world would laugh louder if she believed in kindness. But Richard Kane's eyes were steady, warm, unwavering. Slowly, almost trembling, she placed her hand in his. He pulled her gently to her feet, brushing dust from her sleeve as though she were made of silk, not struggle. "They had no right," he murmured, and something in his tone made her believe he meant it. When Richard led her back into the hall, the room froze. Heads turned. Gasps fluttered like birds startled into flight. The same people who had laughed at her minutes ago now watched in shock as the host himself, the man they all worshipped, walked hand in hand with the girl they had mocked. Richard's voice boomed across the marble floor, firm and cutting, "This young woman is with me. She is my guest. Anyone who dares treat her otherwise will answer to me." The cruelty in the crowd melted into silence, faces paling. No one laughed now. Anna's cheeks burned, but this time it wasn't from shame, it was from disbelief. The billionaire had shielded her with nothing more than his words, yet those words carried more power than all their jewels combined. He guided her to a seat at his table, poured her a glass himself, and as the orchestra struck a new melody, whispered, "Sometimes people forget that worth is not measured in gowns or gold. Don't let them define you." For the rest of the evening, Anna lived a dream. Strangers who had mocked her now smiled nervously, eager to hide their cruelty. The host's warmth wrapped around her like a cloak. And for once, she felt seen, not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as a person with value. When she laughed softly at something Richard said, she realized it was the first time in months she had truly laughed. But Richard was not simply being polite. He asked her questions, real ones, about her life, her dreams, her struggles. And Anna, though hesitant at first, found herself telling him about her sick mother, about her long hours, about the sketchbook she kept hidden because dreams felt too fragile to share. He listened, every word, with the intensity of someone who saw more than the surface. "Show me your designs someday," he said quietly. "I think the world might need them." The night ended, but the story didn't. Days later, Anna received a call. Richard Kane wanted to meet her again, not at a gala, not in the shadows of wealth, but in a small café, the kind she felt safe in. She brought her sketches, trembling, expecting dismissal. But Richard studied each page like it was a masterpiece. "You've been hiding brilliance," he said. "And brilliance deserves a stage." With his support, not charity, but partnership, Anna's life shifted. He funded her education, helped her showcase her first collection. Slowly, the waitress who had been shoved out of a party became the designer who walked confidently into rooms of her own. And the memory of that night, of tears on marble steps, became the fire that fueled her rise. She never forgot the humiliation, but she also never forgot the hand that lifted her out of it. Years later, at her own fashion gala, Anna stood on a stage, her gown shimmering under the lights, her mother smiling proudly in the front row. Cameras flashed, applause thundered, and at the edge of the crowd, Richard Kane stood, clapping with quiet pride. Their eyes met, and Anna smiled, a smile that said she was no longer the invisible girl, no longer the shadow in cracked shoes, but a woman who belonged wherever she chose. And it all began with the night she was kicked out of a party, until a billionaire called her his guest. So remember, sometimes the world will try to tell you where you don't belong, but kindness and courage can break every wall. If Anna's story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner, because here, we believe every story of dignity and hope deserves to be heard.